Did you know that some job postings get over 1,000 applications to 2,000 and the recruiters like me have to screen dozens and dozens of these? But here's the problem. Most candidates are making two big mistakes that I can actually speak about. Number one is writing very long paragraphs instead of actually bullet points. Two is not including keywords that actually match the role. If you're guilty of this, please know that you're not alone. Please don't stress. Today, I'm actually trying to break down exactly why bullet points and the right keywords are the game changer you need to actually get noticed. Top of the morning, everyone. My name is Tshidi and I'm back with a brand new video. I've personally reviewed over 20,000 resumes in my 20-year career. Some roles I've recruited for have obviously had over 1,000 applications. And remember, I still normally have about 20 to 30 vacancies to try and fill. I screen every resume, that I can tell you hand on heart, but I'm also not a company-wide expert in every field. I rely mostly on what the managers are telling me, which means if you're missing certain information on your resume, it's very difficult to know if you're the right person for that particular role. Let's talk about how you can actually fix this. There are certain mistakes that candidates normally make. Now, here's why you should never use paragraphs. Candidates write these beautiful storytelling paragraphs instead of actually using bullet points. And here's why that is actually a problem. Recruiters scan most of the CVs. They do not have to read every single word that's written on that CV because, like I said, if you have over 1,000 applications, you don't always have time to read through very long paragraphs. Bullet points actually make it a lot easier for you to find the key skills that you need. So that's the first thing. Secondly, there's no structure, which means there's no impact. When your experience is buried in paragraphs, it's hard to actually see what's important. Bullet points help highlight your key skills or your key roles and responsibilities or even achievements. Key details also get lost. That's the third thing you should remember. If, for example, your resume doesn't clearly show what you did and how it aligns to actually the role. So you get skipped over and people forget some of these things. What you should actually focus more on is use clear, impactful bullet points that will actually show some of the roles and responsibilities. And I'll give an example. One of the paragraphs that people sometimes write is, I'm responsible for leading a team of sales, managing clients' accounts, and implementing sales strategies that resulted in increased revenue. Sounds awesome. Here's how you can actually fix that. First bullet point, let a team of 10 sales representatives driving a 30% revenue increase in over 6 months. Beautiful. Second bullet point, manage a portfolio of about 50 client accounts, maintaining a 95% client retention rate. See the difference? The bullet points are clear, direct, and very result driven, whereas the paragraph is just telling a beautiful story, but not really telling us what we want to know. Now, I've also mentioned the fact that a lot of the times candidates miss out on keywords that are very, very important for a lot of things. Now, even if you're actually using bullet points, your resume might also still not make it to the recruiter because it's still not telling the story as to what is required by the recruiter to understand what you're capable of because you're not using the right keywords. And here's the reality. Most companies, for example, use applicant tracking systems or ATSs, to scan through some of these resumes. And those applicant tracking systems will then give you a score to say your score based on what you've written on your resume is X versus this. So what some of the recruiters then do, for example, is they would look at the different scores and says, anybody that scored less than 50%, I'm going to decline them because they are not necessarily really meeting the requirements of that role. Not because you're not meeting them, but because the keywords are actually missing. So that's why it's important that you actually focus on making sure that you add some of these key bullet points, especially for companies that are using these ATSs that are actually scanning through your resume. The next thing that people then ask me is, okay, cool, you're saying we should actually have keywords. How do I find the right keywords in this job that I'm trying to apply to? First thing you do is look at the job description. Every role has specific terms. Use them in your resume only if you have the experience in that field. For example, if a job posts something like must have experience with CRM software like Salesforce, right? Your resume should say proficient in Salesforce CRM for client management and sales tracking. That's a very simple way of actually understanding because a recruiter looks at it and says, yes, they've got CRM Salesforce. That means they actually are linked to the role that we're looking for. Not just experience in sales and customer management. It is way too vague. It doesn't tell the story of what you're really capable of. So that's why it's important that you make sure that you look at what the job is saying, the job description, and try and make sure that if you do have some of the skills that they're looking for, you highlight those in your resume. Recruiters are not industry-wide experts. Remember that. We match what's on your resume to what the hiring manager actually needs. If we're looking for a Salesforce expert and there's nowhere on your resume in your key deliverables where it actually speaks about your ability to do anything with CRM, Salesforce, 99% of the time, the recruiters will actually reject you because it's not speaking to what the manager is looking for. One of the things that people then ask is, how many bullet points are we actually talking about? Or how many bullet points should we use in this scenario? Let's talk about the mistake I see. Candidates either overload their resumes with too much information, or they just cut out the key details trying to fit everything into one page, which is not always a nice thing, because I've seen some of those resumes where it's one page and they've said sales and then they don't have anything under that. Your resume should be clear and concise, but cutting out the key responsibilities is always a big mistake. The sweet spot is nothing more than 8 bullet points per role, because if you have 5 or 6 roles that you've done and you've got 15 bullet points on each one of those, it's a lot of pages that we're looking at. First, a few bullet points. You should always have key responsibilities of what you did. And remember, look at the job description and try and match what's on the job description versus what you've already done. 2, last few bullet points, your achievements and impacts that you've made. I always sometimes say to candidates, always try and highlight within those bullet points what are some of those key achievements that you've already had, because it actually tells the recruiter what you're capable of, and it's actually just makes the job for the manager and the recruiter a lot easier. And guess what? Here's another secret that a lot of people don't tell you. Having those key deliverables in your resume makes your interview a lot more exciting, because what the managers normally focus on is trying to understand how you did some of these things on that, instead of focusing on trying to hear all the other things that you've done. They'll look at you and say, oh, I see you've achieved the 30% sales return. How did you do that? What did you do here to make sure? And that's when you are able to then shine. This keeps your resume focused while making sure that you actually sell yourself properly. What do you need to do now that we're speaking about this? If you want recruiters to actually notice your resume, here's what you actually need to focus on. Ditch paragraphs. Use bullet points to make sure that your experience can easily be read by a recruiter that doesn't even know anything about your field. Number 2, include role-specific keywords. This keeps your resume to pass through the ATS for companies that are using ATS and match what the recruiters are looking for. 3, use no more than 8 bullet points per role. Focus on the responsibilities and achievements, especially the ones that are aligned to the role that you've actually applied to. If you've ever not looked at this, go look at your resume right now. Does it have long paragraphs? Are you missing keywords that explain what you've done? If yes, please start making some of these changes here. Drop a comment below and let me know what you actually think. What's your biggest challenges that you've actually been having over the last couple of years in writing your resume? Let's chat down on the comments and I will respond to every comment that I actually receive. And if you found this very helpful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I know I'm asking people to subscribe because this will help me at least tell YouTube that my channel makes sense. Until we meet again, peace.